This will be my second video on understanding spree killers, rampage killers, or whatever, mass murderers, whatever you want to call them. This is kind of part 2, or understanding spree killers 102. Anyway, when you look at spree killers, they are a lot different from from serial killers. Remember what I said. A spree killer kills the whole world at once. A serial killer kills the same person over and over and over again. Aside from the all at once versus one by one, is that spree killers usually use firearms, often these days very big firearms, assault weapons and things like that, such as Adam Lanza, Omar Manton, and Stephen Paddock. Not to mention James Holmes. One of the other things that you see, and serial killers rarely use weapons, rarely use guns, although they sometimes do, like the DC Sniper and the Son of Sam. However, moving on. As I said before, they're often socially isolated, such as was the case with Adam Lanza, Elliot Rodger, and Sung Lee Cho, the Virginia Tech guy, not to mention James Holmes from the Aurora shooting. Also, what we find is that, and James Holmes is a pretty rare one because he actually survived his rampage to be captured. But we find that that's not always the case. Omar Manton, the Pulse shooter in Orlando, he was married twice, and he was able to get a pretty good social life going. There was no signs that he was socially ostracized. Also, we have Charles Whitman. He was married and was able to socialize pretty well. However, more often than not, they're socially isolated and they hate the world for it. Often what is often the case is some people like to categorize these people even further into various divisions, like, terrorists, spree killers into various groups like terrorists, annihilator misanthropes who hate the world, workplace violence, etc., etc., etc. What we find is that we often have, sometimes they overlap one or more over another. Like Nidal Hasan. People say, the more wet liberals will say, it's more it was just workplace violence, he was abused. And the hard-nosed conservative will go, it was an act of terrorism, hang him high. But if you ask me, it was both. He was not happy with with where he was working, i.e. the military, and he also saw himself as a soldier of Allah. So it was both. They overlapped. And there are a lot of things that go into spree killings. It's like it's worth noting that they typically do like violent movies, like James Holmes. He was obsessed with the Joker. In the Joker, he probably saw, power and things like that. And he, being kicked around a lot, he probably wanted some of that power, because it's like, he probably saw the Joker and thought to himself, who in the hell would fuck with him? And it's like, everybody would go, not me, no way, you know what I mean? And that's why he decided to go dye his hair orange, get an AR-15, and shoot people in the Batman and the premiere of The Dark Knight Rises. Or you can mail send him a letter and ask him yourself. I haven't done that, but maybe someday I will. And he's in jail, I think, for like 2,000 years or something. I think that was his actual sentence, like 2,000 years to life or something like that. Yeah, he's going to get paroled sometime in hell. And what's more is, that's obviously why most spree killers, kill themselves, because they want to have control over their own. They want to have power and control. And they do understand that even though this is going to be very temporary, they still would just rather have one day of total control, or less, often less, than, the rest of their lives in living under what they feel is society's boot. And what happens is these people will brood over time. Again, these things take years to happen. Years. It's not like something that they just snap and go and do it. It takes years. Another thing that people don't understand is that some people go, "Oh, they're crazy," and other people go, "Oh, they're not crazy," because some of them hatch up pretty elaborate plans and kill a lot of people. But the truth is that sanity is really overrated. Insane people can often plan very well and accomplish some things that are both wonderful and horrible. But they can accomplish a lot. Sanity is way overrated, believe me. And anyway, we have, like, in the case of Sung Lee Cho and Elliot Rodger especially, these two, you'd have to talk with them for a while to get just a single sentence or response from them. But what we found is that they were not mute. I mean, Elliot Rodger wrote that manifesto and made several videos, and Sung Lee Cho made several videos as well as a much smaller manifesto type thing. He got obsessed with the Columbine shooters, and it really just changed his life, because he was just obsessed with those two. And the Columbine shooters were socially isolated just like him. He even went as far as to call them martyrs, quote unquote, in a letter to a news broadcaster. I forget which one it was. I think it was, I don't know, who cares? You can look it up if you want. But what this is sometimes they have revenge. At least in Charles Whitman's case, it was kind of a revenge against his father. He killed his wife and mother shortly before he did it, because I guess he figured that being dead was better than being alive for those people. But because after all, it's what he chose. He chose death over life, and he wanted to eliminate them so that his father would have to go through anguish, and his father would have to go through anguish with all these cameras pointed at him and things like that, because his father was mean to him when he was younger. He would just threw him in the pool, and he nearly drowned. And what happens is that Charlie also had a tumor in his brain, which got into the frontal lobe and made him contribute to his aggressive behavior. However, what happens next is we often find with these people is that sometimes they have like a warm-up phase, like where they kill a family member or somebody else like that, In Elliot Rogers' case, he killed his two roommates and one of their friends in his apartment before he went out and did the rest of the Day of Retribution. Adam Lanza killed his mother before he moved on to Sandy Hook and slaughtered a bunch of people, a bunch of little kids, and then he shot himself, of course. And again, Charles Whitman killed his mother and wife before moving on to the University of Texas, where he shot people from a tower. And what it comes down to is a lot of people for a long time have been looking for ways to stop this. There isn't really a way to stop this, a way to predict or stop this very well. There's no way you're ever going to be able to preemptively stop a lot of these people. You may be able to stop some of them, but not all. Some people say, oh, take away guns, for example. When actually that guy in, how do you pronounce, I forget this guy's name, but Sutherland, Texas, he was shot, and his rampage was stopped by a concealed carry holder who drove him back, and the wounded shooter later committed suicide after killing a bunch of people in a church. Dylan Roof said he went to that black church to shoot them. He didn't go to the hood where the players play and the pimpers pimp and the gangbangers bang. Because they had busted a cap in his ass. And, although they don't fear death, they do want to have a few minutes of power where they can just terrorize everybody like they're God and just be this unstoppable force of nature. And they can't do that if other people have guns. So, and also, Charles Whitman, he really couldn't get a clean shot when a bunch of Texans showed up with their guns and just started laying down, suppressing fire on the tower. He couldn't get a clean shot because he was constantly dodging bullets. So gun control's out. And as far as violent video games go, and movies go, they do play a factor. I'm not going to lie. They often influence these people. But they don't create psychos. They make psychos more creative. There are plenty of people who buy shit tons of guns and ammo that never go out and kill anyone. There are tons of people who are socially isolated, who these days are content to just jerking off to porn and watching YouTube videos and not hurting anybody. There are also people who love violent movies and video games, play and watch them every day of their lives, and yet they never hurt anybody. But the fact of the matter is that there's always, we don't have a clue, really, how the mind really works. We are in the infant stages of that. I mean, we've just taken a slight step out of basically the Dark Ages. We have no clue how to help certain people. And often it just treatments often make them worse. Like, I think in about 20 years we're going to be completely shocked and horrified at some of the things we did to the therapies and medications we prescribe to people. And as far as various mental disorders that go, I think that, mental illness and anxiety disorders often play a role. It's like, one possible diagnosis is, narcissistic personality disorder, because they don't like it when they're not the center of the universe. They really hate that, and that makes them angry. However, there are also other possibilities, contributing factors, such as antisocial personality disorder, because they don't have any empathy. They're sociopaths or psychopaths. They just will destroy anything to get their way, and they don't care. That's what they do. And there's people, and of course there's autism spectrum disorders, when people who are isolated, picked on, and they start to brood. And as a byproduct, an indirect byproduct. And combined with that, they often have their own view of things. And next we come up with social anxiety, because they feel isolated, because they can't interact and all that stuff. And they are scared of the world and they can't cope with it, so they decide to destroy themselves and take the world with it, take as much of the world as they can with it. And there's also schizoid personality disorder, where these people often are interested in relationships and live in a fantasy world. There's also a lot of different things, from bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, which make people mentally unstable and things like that. I could go on and on and on with different diagnoses, but then again, I'm not a psychologist. I just am putting these things out there. There's so many different options, and as far as mental health goes, we still don't know enough to help these people, and what at the end it comes down to, when they start to realize that they don't fear death anymore. The world that's hurting them, that they don't have any reason not to strike back, because if they hate life and they're miserable, why should they fear death? It's just an end to their misery, basically. And so who would want to just when you say, oh, they should just kill themselves then? Now, why would they want to die anonymously when they can die, quote-unquote, gloriously and notoriously, and go down in a blaze of infamy, basically? People that, shun them and look down on them, they're going to see them on every news channel. And every guy who ignored them, or girl that ignored them, they're just burned into their memories and minds and conversations forever. And they just achieve the recognition that they feel they deserve that way overnight, and it's relatively easy to do if they don't care about dying. And they succeed. That's what their end goal is, to basically, they want to shake the world, and they often do, and they shake everybody around them. Yet, as we all know, that they're not often around to enjoy the carnage they cause, because they usually kill themselves, and if they don't, they get to go to prison forever and ever and ever, or maybe the death penalty, depending on which state or country they live in. And then they're generally not very well received when they're in there. Anyway, this will conclude my video. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and if you can, leave a donation. It's for a really good cause. See y'all later.